This week, the HPT crowns a champion from one of our newest and favorite stops on the tour, the Club One Casino in Fresno, California. As always, we started our final table with the Elite Nine. After a whirlwind of action, we continue the road to a champion with 4 players remaining. One of them is looking to become only the 4th female champion in HPT history. Another is making his 2nd final table in as many weeks and is looking for redemption. While James Jeff fights to regain the chip lead, it's Trent Wen who stands alone at the top, looking to take down the top prize of over $85,000.
This is the HPT.
Sit right down, put on your poker face, you with the big dogs now. Better bring your best game, talk trash all you want. To me it's all the same, you won't leave with much when you come in 2nd place. I'm the one with the stack, showing 7 to the jack. Gon' cry to your mama, cause I'm sending you back. I'll be the last man standing with the money in my hand. I'll be the last man standing with the money in my hand. Last man standing with the money in my hand. I'll be the last man standing with the money in my hand.
Hello and welcome to HPT's finale of an amazing final table here at the Club One Casino in Fresno, California. I am Fred Bevel. Right next to me is poker professional Maria Ho. And Maria, what a week it has been here at the Club One Casino. What an amazing final table.
We've seen some high-flying action already, and the result has been 5 eliminations. Last time on the HPT, we saw Jerry Yang make an early departure when his pocket 8s lost the race against Trit Nguyen's Queen 10. Then Lisa Jacobs ran her ace-king into Wendy Friedman's pocket kings to knock her out in 8th place. After that, it was Trit Nguyen again eliminating poker legend Barbara Enright after delivering a bad beat by flopping a set of 4s to beat Barbara's overpair.
Trait wasn't finished there. After sending Barbara Enright to the rail in 7th place, he eliminated Mimi Lou and Mike in the same hand after his pocket king survived through the river against Ace King and Ace Jack.
Now Trait and James Jeff are neck and neck in chips, while Wendy fights to become only the 4th female HPT champion in history. And Yotam, who is making his 2nd final table in 2 weeks, is also in the hunt.
The dynamics and momentum at this final table can and already has changed in just one hand. A lot of poker yet to be played before we crown our next champion. Let's take a look at the money on the line, the updated chip counts, and then get right to the action.
This is where the big money starts to kick in. First place is over $85,000, and our 4th place finisher is going to walk away with at least $25,000. Not a bad payday.
Not bad at all. Here is the updated chip count as we continue four-handed at this final table.
Trit Nguyen is our chip leader with 4 players remaining. James Jeff following behind him with over $2.5 million. Yotam Shmuelov with $1.7 million, and our short stack is the only woman remaining from the 4 that started this final table, Wendy Friedman.
Wendy only with 8 big blinds, looking to make a play quick. You can see the last time we checked in, she's lost over $1.3 million in chips. And this is a good hand to start with. Pocket Jacks, she's all in.
She's going to move all in with Jacks here. She's definitely hoping for a call so that she could double up and have a little more breathing room. Jacks is obviously a premium hand, short-handed or not.
And Trait makes the call with suited ace-4. Only $355,000 for him to make this call, and he is the big stack at this table. Why not take a shot at knocking someone out?
Let's see if this Trait chain is going to continue. He's been running over this final table.
The flop is 9-3-9, 1 spade on this board, so right now Wendy's Jacks are in pretty good shape.
The turn is the 7 of diamonds. Wendy is still in the lead. Trit is looking for an ace on the river in order to knock her out.
Wendy hoping to double up and pull to within just under $1 million in chips, and she's going to do it as the river brings the 8 of clubs. Jacks survive, and so does Wendy Friedman. As my friend Maria pointed out a moment ago, we started this final table 9-handed with 4 ladies. You don't see that every day.
No, it's definitely great to see so many women make the final table here, and I think that trend is only going to continue.
More and more ladies are found in the HPT fields and all over poker for that matter. A lot of people say women are better at poker than men. They're a little more emotionally stable, less swingy personalities.
Yeah, and I think most women have less of an ego in certain situations, and that definitely helps to not get out of line.
Wendy's going to open this pot with ace-9 suited, makes it 100 to go. James Jeff, her nemesis at this final table, makes the call from the big blind.
He calls with King 9 offsuit, so Wendy has him dominated here.
All right, 2 players, let's go ahead and see the flop.
And the flop is Jack 7-10 Rainbow. No help for either player. Wendy's still ahead with ace high.
They both flopped the same gut shot straight draw though, and I mean the whole donking worked so well for James last time. Let's see if he's going to do it here again.
These two players have some history. Last time on the HPT, we saw James in this exact spot, out of position against Wendy and betting at her constantly. Wendy went ahead and smooth called every street, and James got lucky on her on the river. Ever since then, these two have been locking horns a lot.
Well, I don't think he's going to make a believer out of Wendy. And players have to remember that there's trends and patterns in the way that certain players play. And if you keep track of that, you may just pick up on something that'll help you in a later hand.
Wendy makes the call of $125,000 with the best hand. James is going to probably try to shake her off again on the turn as it delivers the 2 of spades. No help for either player. Wendy very observant at the poker table. As you can see, she is staring James down. And James is going to slow down this time. He's going to check. Action moves over to Wendy. Let's see if she takes this as an opportunity to fire.
And if I were Wendy, I'd probably just check back. It's not a great board for her hand, and she does have a lot of outs that would help her make a value bet on the river.
She does check back. The river is the 6 of clubs, so Wendy has the best hand unless James is able to push her off of it. Maria, does his body language say anything to you? He's hiding his eyes. He's kind of slouching.
175.
He is going to fire, though. Makes it $175,000.
Yeah, I think that Wendy's been very perceptive thus far, and James' body language does show a little bit of weakness to me. But like I said, the board just did not run out well for ace high at all. And now it's just up to Wendy if she wants to spend $175,000 just to see.
Let's see if Wendy can make the hero call. She does.
She does.
She kind of just puts him in there before she can think herself out of it, and she's going to find she is good.
That is a great call by Wendy, and I think she just thought over her past hand history with James and decided that she wanted to look him up here, and she was correct.
Yeah, that's got to give her a lot of confidence, calling with ace high and having the right read. Four-handed poker, working our way to a championship when we come back to Club One Casino here in Fresno, California. Welcome back to the Club One Casino here in Fresno, California. What a great week we have had. We're four-handed, and here's the updated chip count.
Trit Nguyen maintains the top spot here with over 2 million. James Jeff just under 2 million. Wendy Friedman has really worked her short stack up to third place. And Yotam is now our short stack, but not really all that short considering he has over 30 big blind.
Yeah, all of these players still with plenty of room to play. Wendy Friedman with that big ace high call right before the break has catapulted her into third in chips. As blinds continue at 25 and 50,000 with a 5,000 chip ante, Wendy opens for 100,000 with pocket nines. Now we move over to Yotam. He's got 10 jack offsuit.
We haven't seen Yotam play a hand for a while, but his strategy of playing on the tighter side and picking his spots is really what's got him here.
James makes the call from the small blind. Trait folds the big blind. So Wendy going to the flop three-handed with the best hand. Let's see if it survives the flop.
Flop is Queen 3-9, 2 diamonds.
That's a great flop for Wendy. She flops a middle set. Yotam has flopped an open-ended straight draw. James has absolutely nothing.
This flop is probably going to bring some action here. It just depends on if Yotam wants to get aggressive with his draw or not.
Wendy is going to fire 180,000 with her middle set. Action now on Yotam with the open-ended straight draw. Making his second final table in as many weeks. We saw him at the Thunder Valley Casino just up the road in Lincoln, California, right outside of Sacramento.
400.
And Yotam is going to get aggressive here with his open-ended straight draw, making it 400,000 to go. And this is a spot where he could have just smooth called. I think considering there is a flush draw on the flop, Yotam could have waited for a later street to maybe rep a different scare card. But now Wendy's going to move all in, and Yotam is going to have to decide if he wants to get it all in here on a draw.
Wendy making a great play, in my opinion, by just going all in here after Yotam's big bet. And he cannot call. Good for her. Wendy is going to scoop another big pot, a little over 2.4 million in chips.
Yeah, I think that there was just too many draws on that flop for Wendy to just call the raise there. And I think she really wants to make Yotam pay and see if he wants to gamble.
Wendy, the last of 4 ladies at this final table. She's been the short stack a good part of the day, but right now she is definitely on the upswing and has captured some momentum. This is Yotam. He's got ace-4, and those quickly go into the muck. Over to James Jeff. He folds to the chip leader, Tret Nguyen. He doesn't have a lot, but he does have a lot of chips, and he's going to put them to work here as he opens the pot for 150,000.
And I always find these blind versus blind scenarios very interesting. The ranges are wide open here. It's hard to put your opponent on a hand, and you do have to defend a lot wider as well. And as you can see, Wendy's going to call in position here with 7-6 offsuit.
On to the flop we go.
And the flop is 3, 5, 9, 2 hearts. Trit has flopped bottom pair with a pair of threes. Wendy, however, has a double gut shot. An 8 or a 4 would give her a straight.
Doyle Brunson calls those the double belly buster draws. And Tret is going to bet 250,000. And yeah, Wendy's not going anywhere with a double belly buster, which is essentially having the same outs as an open-ended straight draw.
Yeah, and I like the fact that Wendy's going to call here in position. Like I said, there's a lot of merit to not raising draws on the flop, especially when your opponent can't put you on a hand. You can always rep different scare cards on later streets, even if your straight doesn't come in.
The turn is the Queen of Diamonds. No help to either player, but it does slow Tret down as he checks. Maria, do you check back, or do you take this as an open door to fire and maybe bluff at this?
No, I think that Wendy has a good enough of a semi-bluff here to fire at this pot. And, you know, it is going to be very hard for Tret to call here with just bottom pair, and Wendy might be able to take this pot down without having to actually hit her straight.
300,000 is the wager from Wendy.
I think there's a lot of possibilities for Wendy to have him beat with that board, and the river card would probably only make it harder for Tret to call.
The river brings the 2 of clubs, so no help to either player.
But the river is the deuce of clubs, and they both check, and Tret is going to take this pot down.
Wendy couldn't fire that third bullet. You can't really blame her for not firing the third bullet after she was called on the turn. And the second bottom pair of threes is going to be good enough to scoop almost 1.5 million in chips. That's the thing about shorthanded poker, Maria. Weaker hands scooping bigger pots.
There's been a lot of interesting play so far at this final table, and it's only going to get more interesting as we're shorthanded when we come back.
Welcome back to the HPT. I'm Fred Bevel. This is the lovely Maria Ho. We are at the Club One Casino in Fresno, California. Let's get right to the final table.
Tret Nguyen trying to pull away from the pack. He is nearing the 3 million mark now, doing a great job of staying the chip leader. Yotam Shmoilov, though, is our short stack here with 975,000.
We see in the stack swing category that Tret has gained almost 700,000 in chips since we last checked in. He's a very solid player, playing a very steady game right now. Blinds continuing on at this final table, four-handed at 25 and 50,000 with a 5,000 chip ante. Over to Wendy, she folds. Over to Yotam, he's got 7-6 offsuit. He's going to limp in from the small. And James Jeff is going to check his option with 6-8. Blind versus blind here, and neither player giving each other any information as they both kind of limped and checked into this pot. Here is the flop.
The flop is 6 queen 7. Yotam has flopped middle and bottom pair. James has just flopped bottom pair here.
Yotam quickly checks this flop, and James does what I think Yotam wanted him to do, which is bet. Makes it 80,000 to go.
And I think this shows a lot of awareness on table dynamics by Yotam, because he's seen that if you just give James a little bit of rope, he might just hang himself. And so he does slow play this by checking it over to James, and James does indeed fire. And Yotam's going to check raise here to 200,000.
And that does not shake James a bit. He quickly makes the call. Yotam hoping that James is sitting on a queen here.
And the turn is the jack of clubs, and Yotam quickly moves all in.
I can't see James making this call here with bottom pair and an 8 kicker. Not after Yotam check raised him on the flop and then went all in here on the turn.
James actually overbet, shoved here on the turn. I think he decided that if he bet the turn, he was committed to this hand anyway, and he just didn't want the board to run out any worse.
James is going to lay it down, and Yotam going to scoop a healthy-sized pot, just over $1 million in chips. And just what the doctor ordered if you're the short stack in a short-handed game. As we continue on here, the action will begin with Wendy Friedman in the 1 seat.
Wendy has Jack 10 suited here. It's definitely good enough for a raise. Such a pretty hand.
And she is going to raise it. Makes it 100,000 to go. Yotam folds. James folds. We're over to the chip leader, Tret. And he is going to make the call. Once again, Wendy and Tret are locking horns here. Heads up.
And definitely because it is four-handed and Tret's the chip leader, you can't really blame him for defending a little bit wider from the big blind.
The flop is Deuce, Queen, 7, Rainbow. So Tret has flopped a middle pair, and Wendy has 1 card she needs to help her get to that straight. And she is going to c-bet, makes it 115,000.
And Tret does have middle pair here, and he's probably going to call, but he doesn't really know where he's at.
As predicted, he makes the calls. So on to the turn we go. Let's see if Wendy has a second bullet in her as the 2 of spades is brought down on the turn. Tret again checks.
With the turn pairing the board there, I think Tret might call again if Wendy fires. And so Wendy is going to check back.
Right now, Tret with the best hand. The ace of spades comes on the river. That's an interesting river card. Let's see if Wendy tries to rep the ace or even represent a flush here by a good-sized bet on the river.
I'm sure you win.
She decides to give up on the pot, and I would have really, really liked to see her try to take a stab. She could definitely represent the ace when she checks back on the turn. And I think that she just gave up a little bit too easily there on the river.
And blinds are continuing on here on this hand at 25, 50,000 with a 5,000 chip ante. James Jeff with ace-10 offsuit.
150.
He's going to make it 150,000 to go.
And now over to the chip leader, Tret Nguyen. He folds over to Wendy Friedman. Oh, here it is, King Queen.
Let's see if she loves this hand as much as you do, Fred.
All in.
She does. She is all in. She's going to be going to the flop behind, but she'll have 2 live cards if James makes the call, and he does.
Flip over the cards, ladies and
That's kind of a big 3-bet shove there with a 30 big blind stack. I think she could have 3-bet and see what happens, but I guess she just decided to go all or nothing on this hand.
She seemed a little surprised that James called so quickly with ace-10. I got to admit, I am too. You might want to think about ace-10 a little bit more when you're facing an over 1 million chip call.
The flop is 9-5-9 Rainbow, and Wendy is still looking to pair her king or queen.
James Jeff has his back to the table as the 6 of hearts falls on the turn.
Never a good sign when you already have your purse on your shoulder, but she doesn't seem too confident. The river is the 3 of hearts, and she is indeed going to be eliminated in 4th place.
The floor is going to verify that James did have her covered. According to my notes, he does. And it'll be a little over $25,000 payday for Wendy Friedman. Great weekend of poker for her. Hope we see her again on the HPT real soon. Very nice lady. More poker, 3-handed, when we come back to the Club One Casino. Welcome back to the HPT from the Club One Casino here in Fresno, California. What a great time we're having this week in Central California. Let's get right back to the final table.
And with the elimination of Wendy, James Jeff becomes our new chip leader with just over 3.2 million. Tret is still holding strong though with just under 3 million. And Yotam now becomes our short stack with 23 big blinds.
23 big blinds, the perfect 3-bet shoving stack. Yotam is trying to better his 3rd place finish from the Thunder Valley Casino in Lincoln, California, the last event we were at.
Yotam folds under the gun, and James looks down at ace deuce off and just limps in from the small blind.
And Tret is going to check his option. So once again, blind versus blind, neither player giving off any information about their hand.
The flop is ace 8-5 with 2 diamonds, and James quickly checks it over to Trit. And this is where James limping in with ace deuce from the small blind is very deceptive, because Trit doesn't put him on an ace here, and he is going to bet 75,000 because he also has a pair of eights.
So both players connect on this flop. James gets the better of it, and he is going to just flat call here with top pair.
I like this play a lot. I think that because his hand is underrepresented, he could just check call 3 barrels possibly from Trit here.
The turn brings the jack of spades. Both players check through the turn. So on to the river we go. James with the best hand.
And the river is the 9 of diamonds, and I don't know if this is the best card for James to bet now. I think he should check it over to Trit and give him a chance to bluff at the pot, or he could have possibly rivered a flush. He played it a little bit like a draw, betting the flop, checking the turn, so you don't want to get raised here, but instead Trit's just going to pay him off, and James is going to show that he has the best hand with a pair of aces.
So the rich get richer there. James adding to his chip lead, and he's doing it against the guy in second place with Trit. The happiest person about that hand was Yotam.
I think Trit needs to slow down a little bit and take some more time before calling river bets. I think he's starting to make one too many loose calls on the river, and at this point you can't really afford to give up your chips so easily.
Blinds have gone up. This hand they will begin 30 and 60,000 with a 10,000 chip ante. We saw Trait fold, so action is now on Yotam. Yotam deliberating what he should do with Queen Jack, and he decides to raise it, makes it 155,000 into the random big blind of James Jeff, who didn't wake up with such a random big blind hand, as he's got King 10.
And Yotam only has 18 big blinds here, so I think in this situation I like to just open jam from the small blind with Queen Jack off, because you don't really want to raise and call it off unless you feel like James Jeff is going to shove really light. But now James is going to call here with King 10, and they're just going to see a flop instead.
On to the flop we go.
The flop is 8 Jack King. Both Yotam and James pair up. Yotam has a pair of jacks, but James has the better pair with a pair of kings.
Yotam checks over to James. See if he decides to check back and trap a little bit, or if he's going to go ahead and fire.
350.
Wow, that is a huge bet. That's more than what's in the pot, and I don't know what happened there, but it actually just got Yotam to check raise there with middle pair. And now James seems a little bit confused, but you can't really bet fold top pair here.
Well, especially, I mean, he bet 350. It's only 540 more for James to call Yotam's all in.
Right, so I'm not really sure what the hesitation is on his part, but I definitely wouldn't have bet so big on the flop to begin with. Top pair is huge here. And the weird thing is now Yotam thinks he has the best hand since James is taking so long to call, and he's not going to like what he sees. It's kind of what we like to call a nit roll.
A nit roll, I like that, where a player's so tight that they might actually fold top pair, but talks himself into making the call.
Well, they take so much time to make the call when they should have that, you know, it makes you think you have the best hand, but really it's an obvious call given the situation.
Well, it's better to nit roll, I suppose, than to slow roll. That would just be insulting. The turn brings the 5 of hearts. No help for Yotam. He's hoping to find a jack or a queen on the river, or he is going to match his performance at Thunder Valley with a 3rd place finish.
And the river is the deuce of clubs, and it is not going to help Yotam. He will be eliminated in 3rd place.
Maria, momentum in poker is just huge, and right now it belongs to James Jeff. Yotam finishes in 3rd place at this final table, matching what he did at our last event at Thunder Valley in Lincoln, California. He's standing by with James Larson to get his take on today's play.
All right, thanks, guys. I'm now joined with Yotam. Now, we got to talk about this. 2 weeks in a row, back-to-back final tables, back-to-back 3rd place. How do you feel?
I feel pretty good. I think I like my play. I mean, the last hand, I actually was thinking I had the best hand, so, just go. The cards didn't go my way, but I'm pretty happy with my play, so definitely happy overall, 3rd place again, so. Yeah.
You've really been running good. Yeah, give him a round of applause. That's awesome to make back-to-back final tables here on the HPT. I'm sure we're going to see you very soon, my friend. That is Yotam. He's going home with a nice little payday and a 3rd place here at this final table. Maria and Fred?
Congratulations to Yotam, who's made his second HPT final table in just as many weeks. Hope to see him back in the future.
Very impressive run indeed. It is time now for a Poker Life featuring legendary player Doyle Brunson. Now, you know, Maria, a lot of people remember their first WSOP. I'm sure you do. Few people remember the first WSOP. Here is the legend himself, Doyle Brunson, telling us about the very first ever WSOP brought to us by our friends at Ace Play Poker.
Well, the original WSOP was 1970. The idea was just to get the players here to have side games, and the tournament was just kind of an attraction. And so we invited everybody we knew, and they came out, and we had great side games. And then when the tournament came, I think there was only 6 of us. It started, and that was the year Johnny Moss won. Our first year, no, we didn't even play. We voted to see who the best player was, and we all voted Johnny Moss. And then the next year is when we started having the $10,000 buy-in. And then it started growing from there. I can still recall Benny saying, you know, we might have 100 people in this someday. Yeah, we had 8,000 or something.
You play poker for 2 long days, you make the final table. Every situation, every decision worth thousands of dollars. A lot of these players have never been in that spot before. It'll be interesting to watch when we come back. Welcome back to the HPT. We're at the Club One Casino here in Fresno, California. Maria, we started this final table with the Elite 9 from this field. Now we are heads up, mano y mano, for the championship and life-changing money. Let's get right to the final table.
Kicking off heads up play, James Jeff has the advantage with just under 5 million chips. Trit Nguyen has just under 2.5 million chips. Both players have plenty of big blinds to work with, as you can see, so this should be an interesting match.
A lot of poker left to be played here. This is an interesting dynamic. You know, in my opinion, I think both these guys are pretty good, but I got to give the edge to Trait. I think he's played a much more solid game at this final table. Needed a little less luck to get to heads up, but, you know, it's still anybody's game. Trait is going to limp in with Queen 7, and James is going to raise it up with 5-4. I got to say, I like his spirit.
Just right out the gate, James decides to raise out of position here.
Leading up to this first hand of heads-up play, James has had a lot of momentum going his way, so trying to keep riding that rush. But Trait is going to look at a flop here as he makes the call.
I think the hardest thing about heads-up play is developing ranges for your opponent pre-flop.
This flop brings 6 king deuce with a couple of clubs, so James has a gut shot straight draw. Trait didn't flop anything really, still sitting with queen high.
And James bets 250,000. And I think Trait needs to keep in mind certain tendencies that James has shown that he has. I think he bets on the smaller side when he doesn't really have much and bets on the bigger side when he does. And I think if Trait can pick up on that, I think he'll do very, very well heads up against him.
And Trait doesn't look like he's going anywhere. He's raising it. Boy, he's going big here, Maria. It makes it 750,000, $500,000 for James to call.
I like what I see here. He's basically 3xing James's bet here. It's going to be very difficult for James to call with a gut shot. And even if he does, if Trit has the tenacity to fire again on the turn, then he will definitely get rid of James then.
Well, James trying to decide if $500,000 is worth it, and he decides it's not. And just like that, Trait is going to scoop a big pot, just under $1.5 million.
I think it's important to keep in mind that in heads-up play, post-flop play is so much more important than pre-flop play. Anybody can get in a cooler such as aces versus kings, but it's about when you don't hit the board, who's able to maneuver post-flop better in order to take the pot down.
Action in this hand starts with Trait. Pre-flop, heads up, the button acts first, and then Trait will have position after the flop. He's going to raise it to 160 with 4-7 offsuit.
In heads-up play, there's definitely hands you can fold on the button, but with 7-4 here, if Trait isn't going to fold, I like that he's going to raise instead of limp.
James makes the call with ace-6, which is a pretty strong hand heads up, and the flop brings 3 king ace with 2 clubs, so James flops the best of it. Trait is going to fire a continuation bet to 250,000.
And this is great if James actually fast played this, because it just seems so unlikely that he has an ace here that Trait might actually think James is bluffing and try to rebluff. But James just going to smooth call here, which definitely isn't a bad play.
The turn brings the 3 of diamonds pairing the board. That could be a little bit scary. Both players check the turn.
And the river is the 9 of diamonds, and now I'm sure James is going to lead out and get some value from his aces here.
300.
300,000 is the bet. Nice size bet, in my opinion. I don't see Tret paying him off, though, with just 7 high. And he is going to lay it down. So it's a back and forth seesaw here. Heads up so far, Maria. Blinds continuing at 30 and 60,000 with a 10,000 chip ante. The Club One Casino here in Fresno, California has been an amazing host to the HPT. Everybody's had a great time here this week.
Trit with queen 6 on the button, limps in. James checks his option with deuces. The flop is 9, queen 7, rainbow. Trit actually hits top pair there. James is going to check it over to him, and Trit bets 60,000.
James is going to call with his pocket deuces.
I think the problem with calling with deuces here is there's not really any other turn or river card you want to see other than a deuce. And if you don't hit, are you just going to keep investing more chips on later streets? I think I would have rather seen him fold or just try to turn the hand into a bluff.
The turn brings the 5 of hearts. Both players check through the turn, and the river brings the 7 of clubs.
150.
And James is going to fire at it.
And I'm sure Trit's going to call here, but the problem is every time the turn gets checked through, I feel like James takes the river as an opportunity to bet, when this was really the kind of hand that he should check call with and turn it into a bluff catcher instead of turning his hand into a bluff. It's very strange. But instead, Trit's going to raise here for value, and James is going to have to fold.
Now that you say it and point it out, I've seen it as well. Every time the turn gets checked, James generally is going to fire the river. So far, heads up has been a give and take battle. You win one, I win one. We're going to see who's going to win it all when we come back to the Club One Casino here in Fresno. Welcome back to the Club One Casino here in Fresno, California. What a great week we have had. We're four-handed, and here's the updated chip count.
Not too much has changed in this heads-up battle so far. Like you said, Fred, they're just trading chips. James Jeff is still in the chip lead with just under 5 million, and Trit has 2.5 million.
We can see by the stack swing, not a lot of movement with either of these players so far. Blinds remain at 30 and 60,000 with a 10,000 chip ante. Action in this hand will start with Mr. James Jeff. He looks down at 3-5 offsuit. He chooses to limp with it. And Tret, not much better for queen offsuits, is going to check his option.
And the flop is king, ace, queen, couple of hearts. Trit's paired his queen, and he checks it over to James. See if James wants to take a stab at the pot.
125.
James always wants to take a stab at the pot. This time he fires 125,000. You wouldn't think that this would be an action board, given that both players just limped into this pot.
Right, and I think that Trit's plan here is just to check call James. There's not really any value in check raising him, and he definitely doesn't even know if he has the best hand, but it's not really the kind of hand you could fold heads up either. He checks it over to James.
Ace of diamonds falls on the turn, and James is not slowing down. He fires another 125,000 at it.
And this is where I feel like if James wants to try to bluff at a pot, he needs to make his bets a little bit bigger. I feel like the pattern of him betting really small on a bluff is so incredibly evident that I just don't see it working. And now obviously when Trit makes the full house on the river with queens full of aces, he's going to lead into James instead. But I just don't think that he's going to get Trit to fold much to these small bets he makes. James is obviously going to fold because he's got a whole lot of nothing, and Trit is going to take down this pot.
Yeah, James might want to slow down a little bit here. You know, it's not bad to just constantly be firing if your opponent's folding to you, but when you keep getting looked up time and time again, you might want to shift gears. Blinds still at 30 and 60,000 with a 10K, and Trait wakes up with suited connectors. I call these kind of hands the Daniel Negreanu's.
I've seen Daniel win some pretty big pots with these types of hands, that's for sure.
James Jeff has ace-10, and he elects to just call.
And I think there's been a lot of limping and there's been a lot of just calling. I think one of these players or both of them needs to start incorporating a 3-bet, especially if you think your opponent is going to call pre-flop with worse.
The flop is 10, Queen, King, Rainbow. So James pairs the 10s. Trait with just 5 high. Looks like he's staging a continuation bet after James checks it over to him. And it looks like it's about 250,000.
There's something to be said about disguising the strength of your hand, but you definitely want to get value pre-flop as well from hands that are inferior to yours.
James makes the call for $250,000.
The turn is the king of diamonds, so James now still has the best hand with kings and 10s.
Let's see if Trait tries to use that king as a scare card here, as James is going to lead out now for $250,000.
And I think that when you bet, you need to know why you're betting. And sometimes when James bets, I'm not sure if he knows why he's betting. Because he check called the flop, and now when the king comes, he decides to lead into Trit. And this is what's going to happen when you do that, is Trit's going to take that as weakness, and he decides to move all in here with 5 high. It's going to be very tough for James to make this call.
Great move by Tret here, going all in after the board pairs on the turn. If James pulls the trigger and makes this call, that would be pretty amazing.
He does have Trit drawing dead, and this match would be over, but nope, James is going to show his hand actually and fold, and that's got to make Trit feel good because he picked up on the weakness of James calling and then leading into him. And also because James didn't 3-bet before the flop, Trit can't put him on a king or a queen or a very, very strong hand at least here. So it was a great play by Trit.
Making any final table in poker is special. When you make one that the world is going to be watching, it's a little more intense. These players are handling it well. We will be back right after this. Welcome back to the HPT from the Club One Casino here in Fresno, California. We started with a big field. Now we are down to 2 players, and one of them is going to be our newest HPT champion. Let's get right to the action.
After that big bluff Trit pulled off, he definitely evened the chip counts up a little bit. James Jeff still has the chip lead in this heads-up match, but it's not as significant as it once was.
And we can see by the stack swing graphic that a little under $1 million in chips has changed hands here. Still a long way to go.
They got a nice little HPT chant going on in the stands. They should do the wave next.
The Club One Casino here in Fresno loves the HPT, and I gotta say, the HPT loves the Club One Casino as well. Blinds moving up here, heads up. They're now 40 and 80,000 with a 10,000 chip ante.
James limps in from the button here with Jack-8 offsuit, and Trit finds a huge hand heads up, ace-queen, and he's gonna raise it to a 280,000. James is gonna make the call.
The flop is 7-3 Jack with a couple of diamonds. Trait, the only one with a diamond in his hand.
He also has 2 overs to the board, but James has paired his Jack for top pair. You can imagine that Trit is still going to c-bet though.
You are right again, my friend. He makes it 450,000 to go.
And that's almost a pot-sized bet there by Trit. I don't know if I like such big sizing here.
Any pair pretty good in heads up. Top pair absolutely gold in heads up play. And James obviously going to make the call.
The turn is the 10 of spades. No immediate help to Trit, but he does pick up a gut shot straight draw with his 2 overs.
Trait is going to check it over to James, and James is going to bet his top pair, makes it 400,000. And Tret, being very stubborn, is going to hang in there with ace-queen. 2 overcards and a gut shot.
I don't mind this call because Trit does have a lot of outs going to the river, but at the same time, if you're not sure what kind of hand James has, you might not be as live as you think you are.
The river brings the 9 of spades, giving James a straight. He didn't need it. He already had the hand won with a pair of jacks.
And now I would be very surprised if Tritt calls this bet by James here, because the board just did not run out well for ace high at all, and I really hope that this isn't one of the hands where Tritt decides to get stubborn on the river and make a call that he shouldn't be making.
1.2 million is the decision Tritt is on, and I agree with you. This is a really easy fold in my book. Let's see if Tritt tries to get tricky here. And he is going to smartly fold. You can see behind Tritt there, the Club One Casino carved out some pumpkins for the event. Nowhere near Halloween, but we said thank you anyway. Big stack going towards James Jeff's way. Over 3.4 million in chips in that pot. And that's going to widen his chip lead here. Blinds continuing here at 40 and 80,000 with a 10,000 chip ante as James stacks his recent winnings.
And Tritt now is down to 25 big blinds. It's still enough for some post-flop play, but he just has to pick his spots a little better now.
Well, we got to get Tritt to organize his chips there. I mean, he's got the main stack, and he's got a couple of independent stacks out there.
280,000.
He's going to make it 280,000 to go with pocket fives, and look at this, Maria.
And wow, James just getting aces heads up. There is nothing better.
Oh, to get aces anytime you're in a poker tournament. When you're heads up for a championship and your opponent just raised you pre-flop, they're even that much sweeter. Let's see if James tries to just slow play these. Nope, he's not doing that. He's going to jam it. Makes it 700,000 to go.
And I have a feeling that with 25 big blinds and a pair, Tritt's just going to move this all in here and hope he's in a flip.
Maria, again, you are right. That's exactly what he does. And James makes the snap call, tables his pocket aces, and shows Tritt that he is in a bad way right now.
And unfortunately, this is just a tough spot that Tritt found himself in. You can't really fault him for his play. It's just a huge cooler for your opponent to have aces in this spot.
So James Jeff in a good spot to be our newest HPT champion. Tritt Nguyen, who had the chip lead much of this final table, hoping for a double up. Here is the flop.
The flop is 7, king, 6, couple of clubs. Good news for Tritt is he has the only club.
James Jeff at the back of our table, facing the rail, not wanting to see what happens.
The turn is the 6 of diamonds, so James is still in the lead, and now Tritt is just down to a 5 and only a 5 if he wants to stay in the hunt for the championship.
If he can find a 5 on the river, this will be a whole new ball game with over 4.4 million in chips. It does not come, though. The queen of clubs falls on the river, and Maria, there is our newest HPT champion. His name is James Jeff.
Tritt played a really good game, and it's just an unfortunate end, but congratulations to James.
Tritt Nguyen held the chip lead for a good part of this final table. When he lost it, he just couldn't get it back. Second place is a great run as he's going to cash over $52,000.
Congratulations to Tritt Nguyen on his second place finish.
He played a fantastic game. Actually held the chip lead for a little bit, but the night belongs to James Jeff. He got a little bit lucky throughout the process, but hey, who doesn't need a little luck to take down a final table? He's on the floor right now with James Larson.
Thanks, guys. I'm now joined with Kyle Kirkland from the Club One Casino and our new champion. Please give it up for James Jeff, everybody. All right, a couple of quick questions. I know you want to celebrate. Real quick, how does it feel? You got the cash in front of you, pocket aces to end it. What's going through your mind?
It was just a great hand, and I was glad it was over. It was a grueling weekend, and I'm tired.
Now, the real good news is, you got the title, but you're going home with just over $85,000. What's that money? What does that money mean to you and your family?
Oh, Vegas, here we go.
Vegas, here we come. Before we get out of here, I've got Kyle Kirkland from the property. Kyle, it looks like we've got a good representative and a good champion, and what a great week it was.
It was an incredible week for us, and hopefully for the HPT and for James too. I mean, it's a local guy coming in, taking James won more in first place than the biggest prize pool we've seen in the Central Valley. So just for first place, he won more than the biggest prize pool we've ever seen. So we couldn't be happier.
Yeah! All right, that's Kyle Kirkland. We want to thank him for coming out. But real quick, you don't see a lot of poker tournaments end with you holding pocket aces. You must have just felt like Yahtzee.
Yeah, I was praying he had a hand. I was praying.
Exactly.
Yeah.
All right, no more questions. Congratulations. I hope you enjoy your cash and your title. We're going to celebrate here in Fresno. He is our newest HPT champion. His name is James Jeff. Freddie and Maria, we'll send it back to you guys.
Thank you much, Mr. Larson, and congratulations again to James Jeff, our newest HPT champion. Very swingy table for a lot of these players, a lot of interesting characters to say the least. What was your take about the play here at Club One?
Well, along with those interesting characters, we've had a few players at this final table with very impressive resumes in poker, and it was just very interesting to watch the other players navigate through those sometimes rough waters. I gotta say, Trit Nguyen impressed me a lot with his play. I think he'll have these players guessing long after this final table is over, but James Jeff is the one who pulled it out in the end, and congratulations to him.
Now, do you think you have what it takes to sit under the HPT's national spotlight? Well, log on to hptpoker.com and find an event near you. For Maria Ho and James Larson, I'm Fred Bevel. We'll see you next time right here on the HPT.